billions of dollars to mental health and the homeless population. A lot of them don't want to take the program. Either you take the resources that we're going to give you, you decide that you're going to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them.
Yeah, Brian, what?
What the fuck?
Today we're diving deep into a topic that's been making headlines and frankly, should make your blood boil. We're going to react to some clips, read some comments, and starkly compare how China addresses homelessness versus America's increasingly dire situation. This isn't just about policy, it's about humanity, especially after Fox News' Brian Kilmeade suggested that in America they should unalive the homeless. Let's get into it.
So some idiot on Fox News decided it was a real fucking good idea to say that homeless people, if they don't get help, or whatever that means, they should just die, right? And so guess what? Guess what the fuck happened today? Guess what the fuck happened today? Today, someone shot into a group of homeless people. I think like 8 of them are dead. Fucking stop!
When a public figure like Fox News co-host Brian Kilmeade suggests lethal injection for mentally ill homeless people, it's a dehumanizing statement with real-world consequences. Tragically, just days after Kilmeade's comments, Minneapolis experienced mass shootings at homeless encampments. Such words create a climate where violence against vulnerable populations become more likely. In the US, homelessness is at a record high, increasing 18% from 2023 to 2024, reaching over 750,000 people. The demand for services far outstrips available resources, with no community having enough permanent housing to meet the need. This systemic failure, rooted in a lack of affordable housing, stagnant wages, and inadequate social safety nets, demands comprehensive, compassionate solutions. Now let's check out some comments. Noel D says, "The US is finished. The regime has destroyed it completely." And Anthony says, "America is pay to play. If you don't have money, there is no help at all. Third world country wearing a Gucci belt." Now, I've lived in China for 2 years, in a tier 3 city, and I've never seen a homeless person. Not one. Not even a beggar. China solved homelessness through policy. Rural housing is free. Urban homes can't be auctioned off for debt. The government doesn't let people fall through the cracks. They're pulling them up. Meanwhile, in the US, the so-called richest economy in history has a growing crisis of people sleeping in tents under bridges. One nation treats housing as a right, the other treats it as a lottery ticket.
Hey, so thanks so much for this question. And China honestly doesn't have homeless people the way the United States does. So of course there's going to be, some statistic out there that you can claim China has so many homeless people. But if you actually come to China and walk around, you can spend weeks, months, years here, and you're not going to find groups of homeless people in the major cities downtown. You're not going to find homeless people in the rural areas, and that's just because homes are generally very accessible. So, for example, if you were just an unskilled laborer and you wanted to get a home, you can go and get a job that will include a house, insurance, health insurance, and food. So, and that's just an unskilled job, like, I don't know, sewing up labubus. At that point, there's kind of no excuse to not have a home. Now, if you were disabled or you had a condition that prevented you from being able to work, or there was another reason why you didn't have a home, the government would assist you on getting a home, subsidizing your housing cost or providing disability for you. But it's just nothing like the United States. So when I say there's no homelessness in China, everyone's going to comment back and say, oh, there has to be homelessness, but it's just not like the U.S. You don't get on the subway and see homeless people, lying around, or on a city bus and you just see people who are homeless or on drugs. So anyways, hopefully this is helpful. That's just my experience and my opinion, and it shows you a side of China you wouldn't otherwise see or hear. Cheers.
China's approach emphasizes accessible housing and social support. Jobs often include housing, health insurance, and food, even for unskilled laborers. For those unable to work, government assistance and subsidized housing are available. This contrasts sharply with the US, where the lack of affordable housing is a primary driver of homelessness, and social safety nets are often insufficient. Monica Stubbins says, "Spent a lot of time in China. I never saw any homeless people at all. These days," Bro says, "they are better than us." And Penny Lenny says, US is a mess, but yet it's the richest country. What a joke. In America, over 500,000 people sleep outside on any given night. Rent eats 70% of a worker's paycheck. A single medical bill can end your home, and instead of fixing it, they let Fox News anchors call for their execution. America used to be the land of opportunity. Now it's the land of eviction notices and encampments beside billion-dollar tech campuses.
Why are there so few homeless people in China?
Apart from the government's relevant welfare politics to protect housing rights, there are actually two important reasons. First, houses in rural areas are free, and the land property rights of these houses belongs to the village collective. They can only be rented out, not transferred or auctioned. Second, if you're not a rural resident and the house you own in the city is your only residence, then even if you are heavily in debt, the house cannot be auctioned, unless the house you live in is too large in area and too high in value, obviously exceeding the necessary living standards. The court will first help you find an affordable rental housing. You will be required to move out before the court auctions your house. These two rules ensure that even if Chinese people are heavily in debt, they will not become homeless. The situation where one loses their house due to defaulting on medical expenses or even HOA fees is absolutely impossible to happen in China.
This reveals the fundamental policy differences. China's concept of free rural housing with collective land rights, preventing auction, and the protection of a primary urban residence from auction, even in heavy debt, are policies designed to prevent homelessness. The speaker notes that losing a home due to medical expenses or HOA fees, common in the US, is impossible in China. This is a stark contrast to the US, where medical debt significantly contributes to bankruptcy and homelessness. This approach suggests a societal value prioritizing housing stability. While China's property rights and welfare system is a bit complex for me, the clear goal of preventing homelessness through these mechanisms forces us to question whether American policies, which often allow for the loss of primary residence due to debt, truly serve citizens' welfare. And here's a comment from one of you guys. Saw with my own eyes. There were numerous homeless and beggars on the street in Shenzhen 30 years ago. Many were kids, searched for food in garbage dumps, and could barely afford a pair of shoes. It is undoubtedly a miracle for a country to eliminate extreme poverty within a generation. China's system works because it treats housing, healthcare, and jobs as rights, not luxuries. It doesn't wait for the market to fix poverty. Democracies debate ethics. China builds outcomes. And when you've never seen a homeless person in 2 years of living here, you stop asking if it's authoritarian. You start wondering why the West lets people die on the sidewalks. And this comment goes, I go to China regularly. My last trip was in June, and I was deliberately looking for homeless people. I could not find any. Yeah, you visit China and you can't see a single person sleeping on the sidewalk. In America, many of the homeless are actually working. Many of them are over 55. Many are also disabled. And America's response? Tear down tents, criminalize survival, and let a Fox News host say lethal injection for the homeless. And he keeps his job. Meanwhile, Jimmy Kimmel got fired just for talking about Charlie Kirk. Funny how the system protects dehumanizing rhetoric but punishes satire.
So 30-some years ago, I left China for United States to pursue my master's degree in chemical engineering. My first stop, University of Idaho in Moscow, Idaho. And then I moved to Spokane, Washington because I got a job there, 28 years. And then I moved to Seattle. So 30-some years ago when I first got here, I've never seen homeless people or beggars on the street. At the same time, I went back to China visit almost every year in the early 90s. I saw a lot of homeless people. Oftentimes are disabled or children sitting on the street and begging for money or food. It was normal back then. Fast forward 20 years, 30 years later. Now when I went back to China and visit, I'm also trying to do it every year. So when I see the high rises, skyscraper, bullet train and beautiful shopping malls almost in every city. I'm talking about the first tier, second tier, even third tier cities. It's all the same. Clean street and just fantastic infrastructure. I don't see homeless people anymore. And nobody's stealing shit. I remember catching myself thinking, these high-rise skyscraper building, beautiful, everything, should be built in New York City or Chicago or Seattle. That's where they belong. But then after visit, I came back to United States, and the scene, it just feels striking. Because pretty soon, you start to see homeless tent, and people are in an intersection. Homeless people are begging for something. It just, it feels like American and China switched the position. The fortune had flipped. I feel sad, because I love this country, America. I also love China, so I'm happy for China's rise. Chinese government literally lifted 500 million people out of poverty. They created the largest middle class in China. So it is real. China's rising. I'm not sure is 21st century is going to be China century, but United States is declining is also real. I feel sad, but I wanted to dig out the reason. Something I hate to say it, but I have to break the news for you. Even the New York City, the Seattle, it feels like third tier city of China. Okay, Washington D.C. is pretty nice. That's probably first tier city like capital city of Beijing. Chicago, probably second tier. It's sad I even say that, but that is the truth. I live in Seattle now. I feel like that's third tier city compared to all the Chinese cities. So stay tuned.
Her story is very powerful, and it illustrates a dramatic reversal of fortunes. She describes China's massive development, lifting 800 million people out of poverty and creating a vast middle class. This aligns with China's stated goal of poverty alleviation and efforts to provide basic necessities, including housing. The visible transformation, modern infrastructure, and the lack of visible homelessness starkly contrasts with the increasing presence of homeless encampments and individual begging in American cities. China's success in poverty reduction and infrastructure development suggests a fundamental difference in how each nation prioritizes citizen welfare. This isn't about choosing sides. It's about observing outcomes. Now let's check out these comments. When I first went to China, Wuhan for business trip, before 2000, I was constantly mobbed by underage beggars, dirty streets, homeless, and uncivilized. Underground in Beijing was so old, small, and run down. Depressing to roam around, hence I stayed in the hotel mostly. I had not traveled to China since then. Year 2023, my family asked to visit China together. It was a totally different experience, a 180-degree turn. No homeless, no beggars, clean streets, people very polite. Everything works. Now I travel to China twice a year. China pulled 800 million people out of poverty. China wasn't just poor 40 years ago. It was one of the poorest nations on earth. In 1990, over 60% of its population lived on less than $2 a day. Rural villages had no running water. Cities had crumbling infrastructure, but they didn't beg for aid. They built their way out. Not with handouts, with strategy. A state that moved 10 million cadres into villages to lift families, not just data points. Housing not as a commodity, but as a guarantee. Education and healthcare tied to survival, not income. An economy that lifted 800 million people into dignity faster than any civilization in history. It's the quiet triumph of a nation that refused to accept poverty as destiny. The US has more billionaires than China. But China has more people who used to be hungry. and now have a home, a job, and hope. This is what happens when power is used for the people, not just profit. So what have we learned today? We've seen the devastating impact of dehumanizing rhetoric in America, exemplified by the Fox News anchor's comments and the tragic Minneapolis shootings. We've also explored China's different narrative where policies, however complex, aim to prevent homelessness through accessible housing and social support. The contrast in approach and visible outcomes is undeniable. This isn't a simple issue, but it demands attention and a critical look at how we treat our most vulnerable. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the issues that matter. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.